And our God, which is Israel's God, has not stopped providing for the people, even though they had stopped being faithful to him. God has always been your personal steward. God has always had plans for your life. To see God as your steward is to see the myriad of ways that God has been there for you and with you, and especially way ahead of you and me. Now, any normal person who happens to be going through a really chaotic time in their life will listen to my words and they will ask, if God is my provider, if God is my steward, then why is my life so full of chaos at this moment? Is it God's plan for me to go from bad to worse, from bad to worse, from bad to worse, again and again? And that's a very legitimate and spiritually appropriate question, isn't it? And if there was ever a people who asked that same kind of question, it would be the people of Israel themselves when they were carried off to exile in foreign lands. And if you are someone this morning who this very day is asking, why, Lord? Why must I continue to go from bad to worse? I want my words to you to be as accurate and as true as the words that came from the prophet Jeremiah were accurate and true for his people. And here are my words to those of you who it seems like you're going from bad to worse, and you're living in a very chaotic time in your personal life. Here are my words to you. God will come to you and will fulfill his gracious promise for you, for God knows the plans that God has for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. I think you just saw those words, didn't you? Nothing has changed from Jeremiah's day to this day when it comes to who God is and how God involves God's self in the life of his people. God provides, God plans, God is the steward of your very life. Jeremiah's God is your God. He is the one and the same. My words for you are Jeremiah's words given to the people. God knows the plans that God has for you. When you find your life seemingly going from bad to worse, hold steady. Hold on to your faith. The plans of God are not hidden from God, even though they might be hidden from you at that given moment. Hold steady. I am not in the business of selling optimism. I am not satisfied with merely presenting God in a positive manner. I do not stand in this pulpit as someone who has his head in the clouds, or as a man who has never suffered tragedy in his own personal life. And I am not a proponent of cheap grace or artificial hope or some kind of wishful thinking. The words given by Jeremiah to his people are the words that I have to give to you. Why? Because God has not changed. It's the same God. Long before we become stewards of the things that God gives to us to take care of for him, long before that, it is God who has been caring for us, who has been taking care of us, because he is our steward. Today marks the midway point of our stewardship emphasis. Sooner or later, the subject of stewardship requires that we look at our habits of giving money to God and to his church, I wouldn't want anyone to picture me as a minister who is either reluctant or shy to promote our financial contributions. Giving our money to God is part and parcel of our discipleship. But I'm not talking this morning about what we put into the offering plates. I'm talking about something even more fundamental than what we give ourselves. Instead, I am talking about our God who gives to us. That is at the root of our stewardship. Last week, I held up the study report that was recently written by 10 people here at Wesley. And it was said that God had given them a vision of what we as disciples can and should do and what we can become as a fruitful church, both now and even in the near future. When these 10 people put their combined vision onto paper, that vision became a plan for us to follow. This is our plan. We are a church with vision and with a plan. Every church, every congregation can benefit greatly when it takes time to secure its people's own vision and what they plan to do. And we will benefit from this plan of ours. Both the vision and now the plan have been given to us as gifts from God. I truly believe that. Once again, God has been our steward. God has provided for us. To those of you whose life is running pretty smoothly today, let me just ask of you, what are your plans for tomorrow? You have an advantage that others do not have today. Use that advantage well. Your blessings should not be taken for granted. What are your plans about being a disciple of Christ? How will you be a steward of the blessings God has given to you? To those of you whose life today is chaotic and seemingly going from bad to worse, let me just remind you, God has a plan for you. God is never stumped. God is never in doubt. God is never hopeless. God is never handicapped by our human limitations. God is beyond any set of circumstances, and God is ahead of any impossible dilemma that we face. Put every ounce of your faith in God's stewardship of you. You don't even need to know what God's plans for you are today. You don't even need to know what they are. But you will need to believe that God has a plan and that that plan will arrive to you in time. You must believe that. That's part of our faith. Near the end of today's text is something most reassuring. God says, "You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all of your heart. I will be found by you, declares the Lord." That too is part of God's plan for us all. Amen.
Thank you for joining us on our pre-recorded Sunday morning service. If you would like a copy, you can contact the office at 660-359-6762 or email us at wesleyum@sbcglobal.net. Feel free to visit us in person or online at wesleyunitedmethodist.us, where you will always find open hearts, open minds, and open doors. May the blessings of Jesus Christ be upon you in every aspect of your life.